Hey free woman, so grab a smoothie. This is a long one, but it is worth your time. I put a lot of work into this video and it's extremely important that you watch the whole thing.
So if everyone will just gather around close for story time, get your pillows and blankets, whatever makes you comfortable.
But it's when you're slamming down thousands and thousands of calories, especially in excess of what you need with these foods, it creates a unique, rare situation that we generally don't see. That can
17 people were made to eat 20 servings a day of fruit, despite the extraordinarily high fructose content of their diet, presumably about 200 grams a day, 8 cans of soda worth. The investigators reported no adverse effects, and possible benefit, actually, after 3 to 6 months.
Did you notice I didn't call the website 30 shots of isolated high fructose corn syrup solution every day? I think it's really quite funny that his study actually debunks him. This may explain why intake of natural fruits are not, Mike, did you miss this bit? Are not associated with NAFLD.
So I've had the privilege of working as a medical doctor now for 15 years. My focus is in holistic health. My specialty is internal medicine, and I've had additional training in nutrition. So first thing to say is that eating a lot of fruit in the context of a whole foods, plant-based diet is not a cause for non-alcoholic fatty liver disease.
So when humans ingest fructose in the form of fruit, it comes with other sugars, especially glucose, and a large amount. And this is even reflected in soft drinks where HFCS, high fructose corn syrup solution, is used. That would be approximately 839 bananas. 83,000 calories from bananas in a day, which no one can do, of course. And in Nico's case, I've already talked about this. He was starving himself. He was clearly under eating. You saw the photos. The guy had no idea. He was always hungry.
My name is Nicholas, and I'm hungry.
on that once you get up to about...
Hang on. Okay, so let's have a look at this study. From the get-go, this study is invalid, okay? He can't be using this as evidence against a high fruit diet. He just cannot, because in the study they're using an isolate, a chemical isolate of fructose. It's not the actual diet's fault, it's the individual. There's plenty of people who come to a raw food diet and they practice things that are not part of a raw food diet. They starve themselves, okay? They dry fast, they water fast. These are things, juice fasting even, these are things that are not part of the raw food diet. These are things that people want to do and then they blame the diet. You can see that's not fair at all.
You know, I've been eating a predominantly fruit-based diet for almost a decade.
Number 1 on their list of the most important dietary risks, not eating enough fruit, responsible for millions of deaths a year around the world.
Yeah, I think I rest my case.
You don't have a case. That's the sad thing. You think you got a case? You don't. You've just made a complete mess. Okay, you've just kind of just dragged high carb raw vegan, dragged a high fruit lifestyle through the mud to serve your own agenda. Please stop comparing high fructose corn syrup, isolated solution, to whole fresh fruit. Let's just stop. Mike, stop. Hey free woman, I'm Freelee, welcome back to the Frugivore channel. So today's video is a response to Mike the Vegan's video, my response to Nikocado Avocado's Vegan Days. So I'm not subscribed to Mike the Vegan and I don't routinely watch his videos, but some of you have sent me links to his videos that you have found problematic over the years. And I've watched snippets of his videos and I have to agree, when he speaks about fruit and, you know, monosaccharides, sometimes I'm just like, Mike, what are you saying? Okay. And this video is, it's the worst one that I have seen from him thus far. And a number of you sent me this recent video from him just feeling completely confused. Some of you are pissed off and I watch a video and I'm like, what? Okay, I'm going to get into it, okay? And this is nothing personal against Mike, okay? I have spoken to him via Instagram quite a few times. We get on fine. It's nothing personal. This is about the misinformation that he's putting out in this video. So I need to address that, okay? Otherwise, this fear-mongering of a high fruit diet is just going to go on ever and ever and ever. It needs to be nipped in the butt right now. So there's a lot to get through in this video, and I wanted to answer every single bit of misinformation, but the video would probably be an hour and a half, so I had to whittle it down a little bit. But hang around to the end because that's where the juiciest bits are. But if you don't want to wait to the end, the one thing I want you to take away from this video is that ingesting isolated high fructose corn syrup solution is not the same as eating whole, fresh fruit. Never was, never will be. So anyone trying to make that comparison cannot be taken seriously. And Mike, we're looking at you right now. I mean, the guy who claims to be all about whole foods. Anyone doing that, anyone trying to make this comparison obviously has another agenda. So here's a screenshot you can take away from the video of the many points made. So when you see someone making erroneous claims like Mike did in the video, you can put this information in the comments below. I'm not sure if it'll last in the comments, but you can try by posting it there. So we really need for my comment to be the top comment on Mike's video so others can get the truth, because people are so lost in the comments. So take a moment now to give my comment a thumbs up when you go over there. So a lot of you know that I'm an avid researcher who always unearths the truth, and this video is no different. And if you don't believe that I'm like that, you can go and watch my Elise Parker series or my Ravana series, which is very in-depth, and it's just presenting the truth. It's bringing light to a very dark topic. And if you want to see more of these detective style debunking videos, then give the video a thumbs up. But if you didn't have your fruit poop this morning, then you can give it a thumbs down. That is up to you. You do you, boo. It's totally fine with me. Just do something if you want to see more of these videos. I was just so disappointed by this hodgepodge of correlations that he made in the video and then trying to pass them off as science and fact. You know, it's disappointing that he would perpetuate this old myth of high fruit causing, fatty liver disease, for example. I know he is a beginner essentially, but it's just, please, do proper research. And so naturally the question arises, why is a whole food advocate like Mike demonizing eating a lot of whole foods? It really doesn't add up. And then it makes you think, well, is he being biased for a reason here? Is he trying to, skirt around the truth here because he has an agenda against a raw food diet and a high fruit diet? And it becomes pretty clear that's what this is about. And as a 14-year high fruit vegan myself, who has had a lot of raw time during that time, and who eats a ton of fruit and is absolutely thriving and has blood tests to confirm that, it's just so disappointing. I'm just sick of it. I'm sick of people misrepresenting a high fruit diet. It just gets to me, okay? And I want to be in alignment with Mike because he seems to be higher carbohydrate, lower fat, okay? He seems to be about whole foods. But in this video, I'm just like, what is going on? I mean, this culture of human frugivores hating on their species-specific diet, their biologically perfect fuel source, fruit, and a lot of it, it's quite frankly embarrassing. I just imagine other animals watching us saying stuff like, wow, the two-legged devil, they think they're so smart, but they can't even feed themselves correctly. They can't even nourish themselves correctly. I really feel like they're going to be looking at us thinking something like that because it's just embarrassing. It's glaringly obvious that we are frugivores. And what do frugivores eat? They eat a high fruit diet. They get most of their calories from fruit. And look, I get it. A lot of the fruit available in supermarkets to you today is just awful, okay? So the thought of a raw food diet is extremely unappealing, and I get it. And I don't hold that against you. I know most of you are going to be for Mike because you want to eat the cooked carbs. And I understand, and I'm not demonizing the cooked carbs. I'm bringing light to the truth about fruit. I'm not demonizing cooked carbohydrates. Understandably, you would prefer to eat cooked foods in that situation where you're getting poor quality fruit. But just because poor fruit growing methods is being used by modern frugivores who are behaving like omnivores, that doesn't mean that the frugivore raw food diet isn't the correct diet for you and for our species. Because correctly grown fruit is an absolutely wonderful, nourishing, spiritual, I would say, experience. And that's how it is meant to be. And that's why I encourage you to grow your own food, to find a way to move to an area. You only need an acre or less, to feed your whole family, Okay, that's why I encourage this, because it is possible. Where there's a will, there's a way. And if you can't move, you don't want to move, and you want to do it in the city, then you can definitely find good produce. You just have to do a little bit more legwork, a little bit more research. You know, it is possible if you really want to make this work, because we are high carbohydrate creatures. We are high fruit animals. That's just how it is. And we see this reflected in food products all over the world that are packed with sugar and high fructose corn syrup, sucrose, because we like the sweet stuff. You know, we wouldn't be buying these products unless we actually were attracted to them. And, you know, our brain's like, hey, go and get some sweet stuff, because every cell in the body runs on sugar. It runs on glucose, monosaccharides. So we need to have this steady supply of it. So it's completely rational, right? It makes perfect sense that we would then be attracted to sweet stuff if our bodies run on sweet stuff, right? Am I the only one?
I always used to have this insatiable sweet tooth. It would just drive me crazy all the time, especially when I was putting myself on diets 24/7, because I just always craved sweet things. And I remember always feeling like such a pathetic little weakling because I would cave into those cravings, you know, because I just had this sweet tooth that I couldn't control. And I'm pretty sure that's just like how humans are supposed to be, because I was depriving myself of carbohydrates and calories, and so I ended up having tons of cravings for sugar. But those sweet cravings totally went away when I started eating enough fruit and enough calories in general, really. And so I will forever be thankful to fruit for liberating me from that constant tug of war with myself, because that's just no way to live.
Okay, that was a long intro, but I had to say a few things. Let's get into it.
Let's just go. For people who aren't familiar with him, let's cover some Nikocado Histerato.
Oh, by the way, for those not familiar with him, I've known him for years. I know him well, okay? So just keep that in mind as we move forward. I have experience with him. Mike doesn't.
Years back, he was a vegan YouTuber. He was into all of the high carb, fruitarian stuff, into raw foods, etc. I even remember him getting sort of berated for eating avocados because they were too high fat, which is frankly ridiculous. And
hang on a second, Mike. That's pretty deceptive, Mike, because if you know that information that people commented on his avocado intake, then you also know that he was sometimes eating up to 21 avocados in one meal, and often 7 to 10 in a day. Why didn't you tell your audience that, Mike? Why did you just twist the truth? Mike didn't do that because he wants high carb raw vegans to be seen as crazy extremists. You know, that's part of his agenda.
I even remember him getting sort of berated for eating avocados because they were too high fat.
Hence the name Nikocado Avocado. It's my whole channel, it's what I preach and promote.
And he often monoed them for the day, so just eating avocados for the whole day. And if we work that out, that's getting 77% of calories from fat per day. I mean, I love avocados, we grow them here, but that is just simply too much fat.
My name is Nikocado Avocado, and I'm about to eat some avocados. I had recordings of me eating like 14, 17, 19, 20, 21. My top is 21 Haas avocados in a sitting all at once.
So he's doing it the opposite of what the high carb raw vegans recommend, and high carb vegans basically recommend, which is around 80% of calories coming from carbohydrates. How is it ridiculous to point out that someone is eating too much fat and the problems that that can cause? I mean, you do that all the time on your channel, Mike. That's essentially what your channel is about, you know, covering a lot of the damaging effects of having excess fat in the bloodstream. But if someone else does it, it's suddenly ridiculous? That doesn't make sense, Mike. Unless, of course, you're behaving in a biased fashion because you have something personal against a raw food diet.
Glad that I never got swept into that particular corner of vegan diets.
Okay, I'm glad that he just let us know that he has no experience with a high carb, raw vegan, high fruit diet. Absolutely no experience, okay? 14 years right here. 14 years experience, created the most popular raw food website in the world at the time, coached thousands of people over the years. Let's just say I have a lot of experience in this corner of a vegan diet.
Interesting about Nicocado's case is he was one of the first public vegans, if not the first public vegan, to quit citing omega-3s and then
He wasn't vegan, he was a plant-based poser.
And go on to eat fish just like Miley recently did. Both of them said their brains weren't functioning at 100%, and like Miley, he never got his DHA levels tested. Like Miley, he never...
Like, I don't know why he is taking either one of these people seriously. They're both paid actors. They are literally paid to lie.
I used to be so attractive. I used to be so attractive.
They're liars. Miley was lying her ass off. Nico was lying his ass off. Why is he giving them credibility and treating them like they're actually being honest when it is just so glaringly obvious that they are compulsive liars? And they're paid to be compulsive liars.
I'm not sure to what extent he actually tried going vegan. In that video, he just continues to eat fast food. I didn't see any mukbangs where there was actually fully vegan. The final one...
Just so you know, Mike, veganism is an ethical lifestyle about animal liberation. It's not a diet. So him just eating plants in a mukbang is not him going vegan in the video. And of course, the mukbang can't be fully vegan because it's a lifestyle about animals, not about food.
Two videos, he has nearly an hour and a half of him talking about these pictures where him and his partner are going around the world, eating a bunch of fruit. And a lot of it, though, is focused on the negatives. You know, him saying that he lost too much weight, he was too skinny.
I was too skinny for most of the vegan thing. And I would drink blenders. People used to watch me on YouTube. I would blend up 15 bananas, you guys, and the fat just melts off. My stomach was empty. I mean, look at the difference. Look at that difference.
Like, look at him. You know, he's just an actor. He's just a compulsive liar. He's an actor. He was under eating. You can see he's very focused on his weight. Even in this picture, he's sucking in, really sucking in his stomach. Okay, and now he's like jiggling the extras that he has developed from eating that absolute crap in front of him. Okay, so look, the man was under eating, and so was all, and you can see by their bodies.
Difference.
Most, if not virtually all of his criticisms of his previous diet are not necessarily criticisms of a vegan diet, they're criticisms of a fruitarian diet that he was eating. So the video might as well be titled Reacting to My Fruitarian Days, at least in part one. Fruitarians are going to come...
What style of plant eating you do under the vegan umbrella is up to you. You don't need to eat Cook's Buds or Mike's style of plant-based eating in order to be considered a vegan. Nico often spoke about the ethics behind veganism, about animals, and at the time he appeared to be a real vegan, which we now know that he wasn't. He was just acting. He was doing what he does best, as many plant-based posers do. Because actual vegans never go back to eating those animals that they fight for, to liberate and to protect.
Fruitarians are going to come at me hard like they always do, but fruitarian...
Okay, so... let me just stop it there. So for me, the definition of fruitarian is fruit only. Okay, fruit only. And I don't recommend this as your permanent diet, although it's going to be healthier than 99.9% of diets that people are following. Okay, but I do believe that it is healthy to add, in addition to the fruit, to add some nuts and seeds, some greens, maybe some certain vegetables and sea vegetables to a raw food diet. So I would say it's more of a frugivore diet, raw food frugivore diet, than a fruitarian diet. And he kind of conflates the two. And he's saying this 30 bananas a day fruitarian diet. It's a bit of a mess, right? 30 bananas a day doesn't recommend it's a website, okay? It's a website name. It's a website I created back in 2009, and I explained that before, and it's not actually a diet in itself.
Veganism is a more exclusive diet. You're excluding more food groups, just taking that vegan food pyramid and slashing it even further, you know.
I mean, like when you do that, it makes it look like, whoa, it's so restrictive and, oh, you're just, slashing all these food groups out. But are these actual food groups for the frugivore? Or have they come into existence because we've moved to other areas of the planet? We moved to other areas and we have to, now eat dry food because in some areas we can't grow, fruit all year round and things like that. That doesn't make it like the optimal diet, okay? If you can eat your optimal diet, If you can make it happen where you are, that is the best. So, you know, these are the foods that we spent most of our evolution on. Fruits, vegetables, nuts and seeds, greens, you know. So it's not stripping anything.
Whole grains.
Like these have been added. These ones at the top that he's crossed, they've been added to our original diet. Okay.
Cover my theory of how this particular food pattern could have led to some of the issues that he had in a bit. Again, just theory, not coming from a medical professional.
Yeah, well, I'm glad that he calls it theory because it's worse. It's damaging, okay? It's speculation. It's unsubstantiated, a lot of the claims he makes. You will see that he goes on to present it in a factual manner. And then you have a look at the top comment here, okay? What do people take away from this video? Cheap, lazy vegan. And he loved this comment. Oh my God, the fructose thing is so interesting. Finally, an explanation to this crazy fruitarian diet. Honestly, this girl is completely uneducated on optimal human nutrition. I mean, it's all in her name, cheap, lazy vegan. I can do a whole other video on her, and that's probably coming in the future. But this is what people are taking away from his video. So he's saying, oh, it's just theory. Basically, you know, don't take this too seriously. But then he presents it as fact. He's quite manipulative. And then people go away just thinking, oh, fruitarian, you know, high fruit diet. They're all terrible. You know, the fructose and, you know, it's just a big old mess. So that's why I have a big problem with this.
A few days ago, he posted a video saying that his diet is shrinking his brain. Obviously, he's getting DHA. You know, a little warning, this is emotionally intense, but here's a few seconds of it.
This food is ruining my mind. My brain feels like it's shrinking and shriveling.
No, it's pretty much the exact same sentiment that led him to quit his vegan diet. Of course, this time he's...
Look, exactly the exact same sentiment because he's lying. He's lying. He's not very creative, is he? That's what these people come up with. Oh, my brain hurt.
Pretty much the exact same sentiment that led him to quit his vegan diet. Of course, this time he's not on his vegan diet, which is sort of a point to make it seem like it might have not ever been the vegan diet. And I have another theory as to what it could have been. And that brings me to his weight loss, which I need to touch on first. I was referring to the weight loss that he was complaining about getting when he was on his fruitarian diet. Looking back at pictures, he's saying he's too skinny. And no matter how much he was eating of fruit, he wasn't gaining anything. He kept on shrinking. So
like, let me just stop you there, Mike. Let me stop you there. I know Nick, okay? He was under eating. He found me in 2012.
When I first came to the raw vegan lifestyle, I felt great. I lost over 60 pounds of weight. I was clinically obese. I was over 200 pounds. And I felt really good eating high carb, low fat for a good 8 to 9 months.
All right, he found me in 2012 and he followed my advice for only 8 months in 2012. And he didn't follow my advice. He tries to say he did, but he underate. He underate and he lost a ton of weight very quickly because of his drastic undereating, which I'm going to talk more about soon. I mean, like, why doesn't Mike focus on the fact that he was eating all of this junk food, all of this, you know, plant-based junk food, high in omega-6? Why doesn't he talk about that and the effect on the brain? Okay, why would he focus on fruit, whole, fresh fruit? But the junk food, let's not even talk about that. Full of omega-6s. Let's not talk about that, right?
The types of things that Nick eats in his mukbangs are not the most nutritious meals in the world, right? Deep fried cheese sticks and cheesy quesadillas and cheesiest mac and cheese. You know, I mean, Nick has told me in the past that he has always been such a dairy fiend. He absolutely loves cheese and other dairy products. And hey, there is nothing wrong with eating, you know, vegan cheeses and fake meats. Like, I have absolutely nothing against these like fake vegan animal products. But if you are eating them in such large quantities and that is what your diet is based on, basically oil and gluten, obviously it's a lot easier to be lacking in vitamins and minerals.
Like, can you see how this is completely like nuts not to focus on the processed food? He's focusing on the whole food. This is a whole food dude focusing on the whole foods. That's a bad thing. Anyway, let's get going.
So the question is, how is it that these people on these high carb fruitarian diets who are just slamming down the fruit, trying to eat as many calories as they can?
Hang on, who are these people? Who are these people slamming down the fruit? Like, I want names. Give me names and numbers, okay? Like, I want objective data. I want to see these people slamming down the fruit, okay? Beyond their needs. I want to see them, because he keeps saying these people, which is very subjective, very kind of deceptive, you know, not naming anybody and just assuming that Nick was doing it. It's just like so much speculation. I want some hard, solid evidence.
And eating until their stomach is distended, how can they be
That's natural.
losing weight or staying very skinny?
When I was into raw food, I used to eat 3,000 to 4,000 calories every single day. Every single day.
Every single day. Everything. You can see he's acting right now, right? People who are switched on and who don't have an agenda against raw food diets can see he's clearly acting. Sitting in front of all this fat. Look at it. All these avocados. Looks beautiful, but too much.
Every single day. I'm very
I mean,
happy.
like, it's easy for him to take this photo and say, look, I was eating enough. Okay, like on this day when he smashed down all these avocados, which has nothing to do with my advice, maybe he ate enough that day. You know, this isn't evidence of anything.
Metabolism, or at least I did. There's some people say, oh, I underate, that's why I stopped vegan, but they're clearly lying. I mean, they all know that I was eating a lot of food. You can't really
No, you weren't.
get that fat on fruit long term. You just can't.
You can't get fat on fruit because we are frugivores, and getting fat, you know, other than coming from an eating disorder and, you know, gaining weight initially, I mean, long term you can't, because it is your natural diet. You're a frugivore. It would not make sense, would it, for your natural diet to make you fat, to make you overweight, you know?
And that brings me to a possibility, and that is...
Okay, we're going to come to his possibility in a second, but I need to really debunk these lies that Nico is making about eating 3,000 to 4,000 calories every single day. It really annoys me how Mike is using him as a credible source of information. Like, seriously, this guy has zero credibility at this point. And even back in the day, he was always an odd one, always odd. And you could not trust him, I'm telling you. I remember once, well, many times actually, he used to post on my Facebook. Whenever I'd make a post, he had like 40 fake Facebook accounts or something, and he would post his video when he was plant-based vegan. He would post his video that because he wasn't getting as many views, because he was desperate for attention, always desperate. He would post it, and then he would get like 20, you know, of his fake accounts to like it. And then he'd get another 20 to comment underneath, and then comment and say, oh my God, can you do a video on Nick? Can you do this? And it was so often. It was every single post. And then I just called him out. I said, Nick, I know you have all these fake accounts. Stop it. I know what you're doing. And after that, he did stop. But it's just, you know, it's just an example of this guy really, really wanting attention and lying and being deceptive by having all these fake accounts.
I'm not an attention whore.
Yes, you are.
Look for attention. Come out with the truth. I think not.
Look, the dude was always hungry, okay? You can see clear evidence of him being hungry in this post, of being underweight, extreme papaya weight loss diet. Like, look at him. He's clearly underweight. He got that way by undereating.
You look so better than you used to as a vegan. She's like, you're so much healthier, I have more storages.
I don't recommend people undereat, okay? I never have. That's not part of the lifestyle that I recommend. The irony of this whole situation, it's like inverted. You know, he was actually undereating on sweet fruit. That's why he went to avocado. So he was undereating on sweet fruit, and he's just the king of hyperbole. Like, he just will exaggerate, you know, everything. Oh yeah, 3,000 to 4,000 calories every single day. So let's cut to Nick talking about raw food in 2015. For the majority of his 3 years on a raw food diet, he was eating a high-fat, raw vegan diet. You can see he actually gained weight, but Mike makes out he went straight from eating some drastic banana-only diet, where he's pounding in 30 bananas a day and his BMI was super low, and then he just went straight to eating animals. That's not how it happened, Mike. You can see this is false from the date of video, October 2015. And he was also eating cooked carbohydrates at this time. So by the time he started eating animals in what, 2016, I believe, or 17, he was far beyond 2012, right? He was far beyond a sweet fruit raw food diet. Both himself and Orlin were drastically undereating. Nick has deliberately hid or deleted his what I eat in a day videos, very convenient, but your girl is a bit of a researcher. She looks around, and I found a video of what I eat in a day from years back from Orlin, okay? And it just shows that he has no idea how to fuel himself correctly, how to eat enough. And I got the calories worked out, and he's actually having 1,500 calories for the day, approximately 1,500 calories. You know, and for a guy his size, they're both around 6 foot, he should be eating at least 2,800 to 3,000 calories per day, according to the USDA, okay? The calorie needs of a healthy male. So he's potentially undereating by a whopping 1,500 calories. You're gonna lose weight rapidly eating like that. And you can see those two guys did. They were underweight at that stage. And Nico was eating the same quantities as Orlin, and that's why they essentially look the same, you know, and now they look kind of similar as well. They're both, they expand and they shrink together because they eat the same. I mean, even a 4-year-old child needs more calories than that. So they're obviously not smashing it in.
Ability, and that is the fructose absorption limit. You know, the notion here is that once you reach a certain level of fructose consumption in grams, or just in general, your body's like, nope.
In general? What does that mean? In grams or in general? Very unscientific, wishy-washy. You know, this is the kind of thing I don't like from Mike the Vegan, because it is very misleading and it's not being direct with people, that languaging. So I'd like to know in general what that means.
Nope, I'm not going to absorb anymore. And of course, what foods are pretty high in fructose? We're talking things like bananas and dates that people on these diets were going hard with.
Mike, bananas are not actually classified as high in fructose. They actually have more glucose, slightly more glucose than they do fructose, which is quite ironic because you were trying to make this point about fructose so hard, but they're actually higher in glucose. Sure, dates are higher.
Just look at all of those bananas. That would last like 5 days, you guys. It was crazy.
Okay, that will last me 5 days, guys. That's crazy. That's him and Orlin he is talking about. And I did the math there, and they would be basically getting, what is it, about 8,000 calories for what you can see there of the bananas. And then he's got like essentially a salad on this dehydrating plate. So those bananas, it's roughly about 8,000 calories, okay? And 8,000 calories, you divide that by 5 days, okay? So over 5 days, that's 1,600 calories per day. Divide that by 2 people, that's 800 calories. That's like 8 bananas each per day. So if he was having 3,000 to 4,000 calories, then where is the extra 2,200 to 3,200 calories? You know, how would he make it up? He's not in the tropics there, you can see that. How would he make up the 2,200 to 3,200 calories? What, dates? He's not going to eat that many dates. You know, he's not even showing dates at all. What would he be eating that has enough calories to bring him up to 3,000 to 4,000? You can see that it doesn't add up. It just doesn't add up, and as usual, Nick is lying, and Mike is using it to push his anti-high fruit diet agenda.
And I have to pause myself because I can't emphasize enough how much fruits and berries and things like that are healthy to add to a normal diet. They are
add to a normal diet. It's healthy to add to a normal fruits and berries. I mean, a berry is fruit. So I'm not sure why he, you know, separated them, referred to as fruits and berries. And add to a normal diet, what does that mean? What is a normal diet? See, the thing that Mike doesn't understand is that we are frugivores.
One way you can tell if animals are natural folivores or frugivores, meaning leaf eaters or fruit eaters, is to map the area of absorptive mucosa in our gut versus their functional body size. Folivores are those meant to eat mostly foliage, leaves, while frugivores are better designed to eat fruit. The faunivores eat the fauna, another name for carnivore. If you chart animals out this way, they fall along distinct lines. So where do humans land? Here's our functional body size, and here's our absorptive area. So while eating our greens is important, it appears the natural dietary status of the human species is primarily that of a fruit eater.
We evolved as them, we're still frugivores. Apparently it takes something like 100,000 years to change the human genome 1/10 of 1%. You know, it's something ridiculous. I have to look into that more, but we have not adapted to what we're eating now. So we are frugivores. Fruit should always be the main part of the diet. It should not be a supplement added to a normal diet. And again, the normal diet thing is a very subjective term.
They are healthy foods that improve outcomes. That is clear.
Yes, they are extremely healthy. To eat fruit, it is extremely healthy. It doesn't just get to a point where it becomes unhealthy just because Mike says so. There's many studies that confirm that it's healthy. There's even one by Dr. Greger who Mike features in his suggested channel list. I didn't make it, unfortunately. And, you know, it's about eating something like 20 pieces of fruit a day.
Jenkins and colleagues put people on about a 20 servings of fruit a day diet for a few weeks and no adverse effects on weight or blood pressure or triglycerides, and an astounding 38-point drop in LDL cholesterol.
And I noticed on the suggested list that there's also LilyKoi Hawaii, who I know and I inspired.
Freelee and the information she provided me for free is the reason I am here today. She's the reason that I am able to make videos. She's the reason that I survived my naturopath.
And in a video that she did, she talks about the benefits basically of eating an extremely high fruit intake and what she did for years.
You know, I've been eating a predominantly fruit-based diet for almost a decade. When I started that diet, I had hypoglycemia, I'd been diagnosed with polycystic ovarian syndrome, I'd been diagnosed with hypothyroidism. I was overweight, I was constipated, I was exhausted, I had terrible skin, I just felt awful. And all of that reversed on a high fruit diet. My blood sugar problems, the hypoglycemia, the insulin regulation problems, the hormone problems, it all went away on an extremely high fruit diet.
So if anything, as human frugivores, we should be basing our diet off fruit. It should be the main part of our diet. And adding cooked foods if we want to, but not for nutritional benefit over the fruit, but maybe due to it being more available and it lasting longer, you know, depending on seasons and stuff like that.
But it's when you're slamming down thousands and thousands of calories, especially in excess of what you need with these foods, it creates a unique, rare situation that we generally don't see that can lead to issues. No, the fructose absorption limit is something...
Okay. I just cannot believe that he made this statement right now. So this is unacceptable, okay? This statement that he just made, this fear-mongering, I'm just like, no, this isn't okay. Mike refers to his channel as a science channel, and then he goes on to make this 100% unsubstantiated, unscientific connection statement. And it blows my mind. The statement was, but it's when you are slamming down thousands and thousands of calories, especially in excess of what you need with these foods, it creates a unique, rare situation we generally don't see that creates issues. Fructose absorption limit. This is 100% just his speculation, okay? And that's damaging, all right? That's damaging to people who need to be eating more fruit. It's fearing them away from fruit.
The Global Burden of Disease study, funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, is the most comprehensive and systematic analysis of the causes of death undertaken ever, involving nearly 500 researchers from more than 300 institutions in 50 countries, starting out with almost 100,000 data sources. What did they find? Number one on their list of the most important dietary risks, not eating enough fruit, responsible for millions of deaths a year around the world.
Where is the proof? Where is the scientific study saying that eating raw food diet, eating exclusively fruit, high fruit diet, is going to lead to this fructose absorption limit? Where is the study? There isn't one because it's based on high fructose corn syrup. It's based on an isolated chemical compound, okay, on the solution. It's not based on whole food, whole fruit, in its perfect package, with its fiber, the pectin, with the water, with the micronutrient. And it's literally impossible to slam down thousands and thousands of calories in excess of your body's needs day after day. If you're eating high fiber, high water, high carbohydrate, whole foods like fruits, it's impossible. Mike should know this, but he doesn't because he's never done, like he said, he's never tried a high fruit raw food diet, so he's clueless. Let's go back to LilyKoi for a moment for some great information on that.
Dr. Greger summarizes a few really interesting studies. So these studies looked at whether or not it's possible to eat too much fruit. And basically what those studies found was that it's essentially physically impossible to eat too much fruit. Because fruit is so high in dietary fiber and its water content is so rich, it's very bulky and it takes up a lot of space in the digestive tract, And so we actually max out the space that's in our stomach and our intestines before we can eat an amount of fruit that causes any medically detectable problems. So I did some tabulating. These are approximates. In the last 10 years, I have eaten approximately 54,750 bananas, 3,162 oranges, 2,426 apples, and somewhere north of 5,000 papayas. I stuffed those fruits in. I'm a very fruity person, and it has served me oh so well.
I also find it quite telling that Mike demonizes smashing in just eating enough calories, that's what it is, from sweet fruit. But when it comes to avocado, the high-fat fruit, he's totally okay with 7 to 10 avocados a day and up to 21 in one meal. Why wasn't this video focused on what it should be, and that is eating that much fat, the ill effects of eating that much fat in a day?
No, the fructose absorption limit is something that was discovered long enough back and not a new thing anymore, so we have to go all the way back to the 80s to get some studies on this that are very clear. You know, for example, this one, which found that once you get up to about...
Hang on. Okay, so let's have a look at this study. From the get-go, this study is invalid, okay? He can't be using this as evidence against a high fruit diet. He just cannot, because in the study they're using an isolate, a chemical isolate of fructose, okay? Whether it's high fructose corn syrup or the molecule fructose, this is not comparable to eating whole fruit. In the package, you know, whole food, Mike? Like, you know, I don't even have to go any further with this. I don't have to analyze this study at all, okay? I'll do a little bit just because why not, here we are, but it's not valid. It's completely inadmissible as evidence against a high fruit diet. Please stop comparing high fructose corn syrup, isolated solution, to whole fresh fruit. Let's just stop. Mike, stop. Anyway, let's just look at it for fun, right? Well, it's not fun though, because this is really misleading people and this is really fearing people into not eating enough fruit because they should be eating a high fruit diet.
About 50 grams of fructose. Malabsorption occurs in about 70% of people.
Okay. All right. So look, I have to stop it there because he made the statement this occurs in 71% of people. So he made it appear like it's like just a general population. These are the results. But it clearly says here 10 out of 14 subjects. It's a very small scale study. 10 out of 14 subjects had an issue with this 50 grams as a 20% solution. It reminds me of the whole potassium chloride overdose from eating bananas. You know, you have to eat hundreds of bananas in the space of like 30 seconds in order to get this potassium chloride overdose, which is, of course, impossible. And it is impossible as well if you're eating whole, fresh fruit. Mike. I mean, it makes sense that the body would have a sort of laxative effect if it has this chemical isolate because it's protecting you from getting too much, you know, in one go, which is not how you get it in nature. It's not even how you get it in a juice, okay? Because this is an absolute isolate that has been formulated in a lab. So another crucial point to make here is that in the study Mike presented, they state that they used fructose. I can't say for sure whether that was high fructose corn syrup solution or the isolated fructose molecule. Obviously, both are synthesized in a lab, and the results from ingesting these chemical isolates will never be the same as ingesting whole fruit meals. Obviously, we know this. But let's just say it is a pure fructose chemical isolate. So when humans ingest fructose in the form of fruit, it comes with other sugars, especially glucose, and a large amount. And this is even reflected in soft drinks where HFCS, high fructose corn syrup solution, is used. And most HFCS added to drinks and foods in the US is a solution called high fructose corn syrup 55. So the irony in high fructose corn syrup is that it's not actually high in fructose. The only reason they call it high fructose corn syrup because it has more fructose than corn syrup, than normal corn syrup, which is just made out of glucose. No fructose in there. So it contains 55% fructose, 41% glucose, and 4% other sugars. So the coupling of fructose with glucose in particular is scientifically proven to dramatically increase the absorption of fructose, as stated in the study on fructose malabsorption. So as it says, the studies referenced above tested isolated fructose, as I believe Mike's did as well, which it says fructose. So that's all we can go on. Such studies may overestimate the prevalence of fructose malabsorption, as fructose is almost always consumed together with glucose in both naturally occurring and processed foods. Indeed, when patients ingested 40 grams of high fructose corn syrup, HFCS, at 55, the prevalence of fructose intolerance, defined as having both an abnormal breath test and symptoms, was just 7%. Yet when pure fructose was consumed, the prevalence increased to 40%. Again, that's why fruit is perfect. It comes in a package, so we get our fructose in this perfect package that's also delivered with other sugars as well that helps with the absorption and uptake. So you can see that certain people's bodies with digestive issues, not even everybody, is just naturally reacting to this synthetic isolated chemical, which we would expect, as it is just an isolated chemical molecule, and when it's taken alone and in such concentrated amounts, of course, it's somewhat toxic and the body wants to eliminate it. The fructose in the high fructose corn syrup actually started off as corn starch. Starchivores, anyone? Starch, and then it was converted to glucose, and then it's like into fructose. So you are having fructose that came from starch, but it was formulated in a lab. Okay, so how do they even know it's exactly like the fructose that is found in fruit? Sure, they can look at it and say, yeah, it looks the same, this chemical structure, but how do we really know? So, you know, you can see how this is not comparable. You know, we shouldn't be comparing something made in a lab to something that is made in nature, perfected by Mother Nature.
And I know how a lot of fruitarians think. They'll hear this information and they'll be like, oh, well, no, actually, you're different when you're on a fruitarian diet. I'm different. We adapt and you absorb more. And actually, that's on an unhealthy population. You know, healthy bodies don't work like that. We're frugivores.
Exactly, point after point. And he knows that people would bring this up as a valid point because it is something we have to consider, that we are biologically, physiologically frugivores. It's not speculation, that's what we are. Saying we're starchivores is pure speculation. And even Dr. Greger agrees that we are frugivores. And yes, it is on an unhealthy population. And apparently Mike has said in many videos that these tests should be done on vegans. These people aren't vegans unless it's specified, and it is not specified. Okay, so he's just like going against his own, you know, like principles here, which makes it really like obvious that he has this agenda against a high fruit raw food diet.
But to that, I just have to say, you can't rely on that level of speculation and
You can't rely on that level of speculation. It's not speculation that we are frugivores, but your whole video is basically speculation.
BMI that these people are able to maintain at such high calorie consumption needs an explanation. No, I'm not
okay, I've got an explanation for you, Mike. I've already explained the whole thing, but let's go through it briefly again. Number one, who are these people? Yeah, he doesn't name anyone. He's just talking about Nico and he's just speculating with Nico. But who are these other people? So we can then go and have a closer look at them, analyze the situation and see if Mike is correct. But he doesn't give names. He doesn't say anything about anyone who it is. He just those people, because he knows that when we go and have a look at those people, we'll see that he's incorrect about his hypothesis. And we would just prove that very easily. And we're proving that right now. But you know, he doesn't name these people. He doesn't actually have any evidence whatsoever. And as far as BMI goes, we are meant to be lean. Okay, human frugivores are meant to be lean animals. And in Nico's case, I've already talked about this. He was starving himself. He was clearly under eating. You saw the photos. The guy had no idea. He was always hungry.
My name is Nicholas.
And I'm hungry.
He is one hungry sloth.
I've come so far in terms of learning how to take care of myself.
I lost so much weight this month, and I didn't even have to try. All I did was stop eating. It was so easy.
Okay, so we can just forget about that because he was just starving himself. So we don't need to keep analyzing. There's a whole lot of subjective speculation, you know, like theories going on here, which I don't like because it confuses people and it misrepresents a high fruit, raw food diet and fruit in general.
I'm not going to talk about how we've been largely starchivores for 250,000 years or longer. But back to the research.
Okay, I'm not going to talk about it, but then I talk about it. Just because we've been including starches in our diet for a long time doesn't mean it's optimal, doesn't mean it's better than fruit, okay? We've been including animal products as well for a long, long time, and we know that's not optimal. And please, this whole starchivore thing, I mean, like this is so unscientific. I mean, using the term starchivore, like it's a carbohydrate group. Animals eat whole foods in nature, okay? That's why science specifies, you know, a carnivore eats meat, okay? Which comes with more than just fat and protein, obviously. It's a whole food. It's horrible to think of an animal as a food, but for some animals, obviously carnivores, that is the case. A herbivore eats whole vegetation, okay? And a frugivore eats whole fruits. It bases a diet off whole fruits. Not just, and getting more than just carbohydrates, obviously. And that's why you wouldn't say carbivore. You wouldn't call a human a carbivore or a fructosivore. You see what I'm saying? Humans are just not animals that are meant to eat large amounts of starch. We just don't have that ability to break it down and it just passes through as fiber. We do have the ability, the enzymes, to break down a small amount, which is what you find in fruit commonly, small amounts of starch, not, you know, the amount that you would find in a spud. And that's why we need to cook it. Okay, you can't just eat it like an apple, can you? You know, we have to cook it, we have to explode those starch molecules. We have to break them down so the chains of glucose are easier for us to break down and absorb into our body and use as fuel. That's what the cooking process does. But it is breaking the food down. It is not more nutritious for us to eat that exploded spud over bananas, for instance. You know, when you eat an apple, you are instantly accessing that simple sugar, those monosaccharides. You don't need to break it down. You don't need to cook it down in order to make it more accessible, the sugars in that food, to make them more accessible and used by the body. And that's why it's perfect, because we get that sugar and we get it at a steady rate too. It's not like too much, too soon or anything like that, because it comes in a whole food and it's just perfect for humans.
Researchers, they say that their data matches with others showing that total fructose absorption capacity is generally around 30 to 35 grams until things stop being absorbed. So we're talking about 120, 150, 200 calories of fructose and you stop absorbing it. That 30 bananas a day diet where people are reading about, you know,
30 bananas a day diet? There is no such thing as a 30 bananas a day diet. Like, why is he misrepresenting, you know, something that I created myself to the public? Like, just, you know, because it's popular to do so, it's popular to bash 30 bananas a day or raw food diets in general and fruit, eating a high fruit diet. That's the sad thing. It is popular to do that. Frugivores bashing their biologically designed diet or close to it. Anyway, did you notice I didn't call the website 30 shots of isolated fructose solution every day? It's just a website name, okay? It doesn't mean you have to eat 30 bananas a day every day, and no one does that every day as a permanent diet. So he's going for the kind of extremist representation here again.
You know, 3,100 calories of bananas, that's 213 grams of fructose in a day. And so you're talking...
Okay. Let's have a closer look at this, shall we?
Should we not eat more than 5 fruit a day? Quoting from the Harvard Health Letter, the nutritional problems of fructose and sugar come when they are added to foods. Fruit, on the other hand, is beneficial in almost any amount. What do they mean by almost? Can we eat 10 fruit a day? How about 20 fruit a day? It's actually been put to the test. 17 people were made to eat 20 servings a day of fruit, despite the extraordinarily high fructose content of their diet, presumably about 200 grams a day, 8 cans of soda worth. The investigators reported no adverse effects, and possible benefit, actually, for body weight, blood pressure, and insulin and lipid levels, fats in the blood, after 3 to 6 months. The deleterious effect of fructose was limited to industrial fructose, meaning table sugar and high fructose corn syrup, with no evidence for a negative effect of the fructose in whole fruit. This apparent inconsistency might be explained by the positive effects of other nutrients, like fiber and antioxidants, in fresh fruit.
Mike doesn't actually tell his audience this is based on soft drinks, okay? And I'm not even demonizing fructose, okay? I don't encourage anyone to have something that has been made in a lab like that, but there is a lot more to the picture here. Like, people should be worrying about the phosphoric acid in, these soft drinks, rather than the fructose or the glucose content. And that's, there's a lot more behind that. Meat and dairy is obviously pushing a lot of these studies to demonize sugar instead of looking at the phosphoric acid. There's just so many gaping holes in his presentation. It's just ridiculous. And it's amazing that people don't detect them. He should take this video down because it's so entirely inaccurate and misrepresenting the whole situation that it should be taken down. Mike chooses to focus on 3,100 calories in a day. For a start, no one is eating 30 bananas a day every day as a permanent diet, okay? So that's just irrelevant, but let's just say that people are doing that, okay? But he chooses this day, across the course of a day, 213 grams of fructose. It's actually more like 100, and I did the calculations. It's actually less than that. It's more like 170 or so if you're using medium bananas, which is what most of the population eats. So he's inflated that one. But he's doing it across the course of the day. He's not doing it in one single dose. And even in his own reference study, there is a reference by the author to another study. Past studies found fructose absorption to be quite efficient, approaching 90% of glucose absorption, with an estimated total fructose absorptive capacity of over 4,800 grams per day. And we're doing the per day here. We're not doing this per dose, okay? So he is not comparing apples with apples. So if you do compare apples with apples, that would be approximately 839 bananas, 83,000 calories from bananas in a day, which no one can do, of course. All right, so you can just see it is just bunk, unscientific. It's again like the whole potassium overdose. You just cannot eat the quantity to get this concentration that he is talking about.
Fruit eaters, is to map the area of absorptive mucosa in our gut versus their functional body size. And here's our absorptive area. So while eating our greens is important, it appears the natural dietary status of the human species is primarily that of a fruit eater.
Well, eating 3,000 calories a day or more. And of course, while your body isn't absorbing that, it's still
By the way, 3,000 calories. Okay, this is actually what the USDA recommends for a male, a 5'10" male who is the age of Nikocado, was at the time or even now, is 3,000 calories. Okay, is 3,000 calories, and it can go up or down from there. So it can go even more, of course. Okay, so 3,000 calories, like he's kind of talking about 3,000 calories like it's, whoa, it's like so many calories. It's like, no, if you have a fruit-based diet, you have to obviously get enough calories, and 3,000 calories a day is what is recommended for a 5'10" male, and Nikocado is actually 6 foot, so, it makes sense, but he's trying to make it, whoa, it's so extreme. It's like, he wasn't even eating that many calories, as we know, but.
And of course, while your body isn't absorbing that, it's still in your intestines, which
I don't like the way that he's saying your body and it's still in your intestines. This is really he's talking as if he's talking to his audience. He's like, this is happening to you when you eat a lot of fruit. This is happening. Before he's like, it's a rare situation and this is a theory and blah, blah, blah. And then he's like, this is what's happening in your body. And, this is very, very this is a lot of fear mongering. And you need to be switched on up here to be able to spot it. If you don't spot it like me, you just absorb it and it just becomes part of your belief system. And that's really dangerous. As you can imagine, I've been defending fruit, whole food fruit, from newbies like Mike forever. So it starts to get frustrating, especially coming from someone who claims to be all about whole foods.
Can theoretically lead to SIBO, maybe some diarrhea, and so it is just not...
He's connecting it up with SIBO. You made some terribly inaccurate connections here, and many people in the comment, hundreds of people, believe it, and thousands, like 64,000 people have seen it. It's a disaster. Please take it down.
In part 2 of reacting to his vegan diet, you can see he starts eating starch toward the end. But the important question here is, could this fructose...
That's the thing. He starts eating starch towards the end. Actually, he eats starch for a long time. He does mukbangs, okay? And he's binging out on it. All right, so the irony of this whole thing is he was eating starch. He was eating these high carbohydrate cooked foods before he went back to eating animals. And he's trying to draw this false conclusion. He's drawing this false conclusion that him having this short period of eating sweet fruits in 2012, you know, this high carb raw vegan diet where he wasn't eating enough, he's trying to draw the conclusion that little period in 2012 is why he went back to eating animals in 2017 or whatever, years later. Even though he's eating starch, he's eating high carbohydrate foods before he went back. Mike, you're just shooting yourself in the foot here. You just said it yourself. Like, he's clearly eating cooked plant foods. Stop trying to demonize a high carb, high fruit, raw vegan diet.
But the important question here is, could this fructose issue be leading to some more serious health issues in a few of these people who ate that dietary pattern?
A few of these people who ate that dietary fat, again, not saying anybody.
And that brings me to a theory. Again, there's nothing really proving this because we just don't have enough data.
Oh yeah, a theory, okay? So why are you even presenting this and trying to, you know, he always says theory, it's just a theory, but then he presents it as fact, and then he's like, and this is what's happening in your body, and like over 70% of people experience this. You know, like he's very manipulative, so people get confused and they just settle on like, okay, fruit is bad. High fruit is bad. That's it. Okay, raw food diet's bad. You know, it's like, they don't focus on the fact that the individual, how about the way the individual was treating the diet, how they did their version of a raw vegan diet, like Nikocado starving himself, okay? And then blaming the diet. That doesn't make sense. It's like coming up to a beautiful fruit tree, okay, and wanting to get the fruit. And instead of learning, you know, to climb and getting it the proper way, you take a chainsaw to that tree. You take a chainsaw to the tree to get the fruit down, and the tree falls on you. And then you blame the tree. You blame the tree for hurting you, even though it was your fault for not actually learning how to climb. You know, it's... if that comparison makes sense. You know, it's not the actual diet's fault. It's the individual who doesn't know what they're doing, doesn't learn how to implement the lifestyle correctly and undereats like Nikocado did. You know, there's plenty of people who come to a raw food diet and they practice things that are not part of a raw food diet. They starve themselves, okay? They dry fast, they water fast. These are things, juice fasting even, these are things that are not part of the raw food diet. These are things that people want to do, and then they blame the diet. You can see that's not fair at all. Please stop making this false connection. And now, here comes the next load of rubbish.
Yeah, but some things match up pretty well, and that is the development of non-alcoholic fatty liver disease.
I can't believe that he is pushing this old myth, connecting fruit with non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. This is so irresponsible of someone who claims to be about whole foods.
I know that we aren't geese. You don't have to comment it. Now people are just going to comment, we're not geese.
We're not geese. Exactly. Of course it's important to bring up this point because geese are not frugivores, Mike. Geese are not frugivores. This study he's referencing is done on geese. Ugh.
Do you know how they created foie gras in ancient Rome, which is, of course, getting a really fatty liver in a goose and eating it, which is horrible now ethically. There's a lot of bad things going on in that area. But they did...
Exactly. Horrible. Horrible, horrible. Like, if you have educated yourself at all on how foie gras comes about, like the force feeding of geese, it's just disgusting. It's heartbreaking.
Did it by feeding them dates.
Okay, so why has he got a speech bubble saying date me coming from the goose? Like he just talked about the hell, you know, the awful, the pain and suffering that the goose goes through, and then he makes fun of the suffering. This is really like weird coming from a vegan, isn't it? Like, Mike, what? It's disgusting.
And like, I would be driving, I'm like, oh my God, I'm shaking. Give me dates. Like, it was so inconvenient.
Oh my God, I'm shaking. Give me dates. Okay? Under eating. More likely too, he's getting these shakes when he was eating a whole lot of avocados. And why didn't Mike actually focus on that? Because he doesn't understand basic human nutrition. But he should be focusing on the fact that he was eating a lot of avocados, which I've spoken about in other videos. It affects your glucose uptake, okay? Fructose doesn't require insulin, but glucose does. And if you have excess fat in your bloodstream, it's going to interrupt that process of getting the sugar, the glucose, into your cell, all right? So, of course, you know, having the shakes and everything like that, it's not surprising for me. And I don't know why Mike didn't like point that out.
Not oil,
well, I do, but
not animal fat, but by feeding them whole dates, not even refined sugar.
Again, humans are frugivores. We process our food in a different way to geese. So,
and some of you might remember those 1,000 calorie date shakes that these people used to make. Yeah, I think I rest my case.
You don't have a case. That's the sad thing. You think you got a case, you don't. You've just made a complete mess. Okay, you've just kind of just dragged high carb raw vegan, dragged a high fruit lifestyle through the mud to serve your own agenda, because it's popular to shit all over raw food diets, isn't it? Especially by these high carb cooked vegans. And you know, they know they're going to get a lot of support because most people don't want to eat a high fruit diet. And I already talked about this, I get it, but it doesn't make it more optimal to eat high carb over fruit. Anyway, it's just like everybody's favorite thing to do is to bash fruit and to bash raw food. And all it reflects on is their lack of education about basic human physiology. You don't have a case, Mike.
But back to humans, this paper...
Back to humans.
Just use that as an example of how eating large amounts of fructose can lead to non-alcoholic fatty liver disease.
So let's have a closer look at that study, shall we? Because Mike hasn't presented everything that is in that study. And I think it's really quite funny that his study actually debunks his theory, his speculation, in one phrase. And that phrase is, there is evidence that many substances found in natural fruits, such as flavonols, epicatogen, vitamin C, and other antioxidants may also protect against fructose-induced metabolic syndrome. This may explain why intake of natural fruits are not, Mike, did you miss this bit? Are not associated with NAFLD, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. They say it here. This may explain why intake of natural fruits are not associated, Mike. Why are you making the association if your own study says it's not associated? Tell me in the comments what you think about this. I think it's just ludicrous that he would then try and pass this off as like a connection, as being something that should be compared. This isolated high fructose corn syrup, these, you know, drinking soft drinks, to eating whole fruit. Like what? And there is more to go through here. It says in the conclusion, in summary, there have been a marked rise in sugar and high fructose corn syrup intake that has paralleled the rise of non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. But you know what else has risen? Animal product consumption. Why didn't he look at that? And also in the study, it says high fat diets may also contribute to fatty liver. And it also says that high salt diets are independently associated with metabolic syndrome, diabetes, and non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. High fat, high animal product, high salt, but let's blame the sugar. Let's blame the fructose, right? Let's have a look at if there's a conflict of interest, shall we? Yes, there is a conflict of interest. Let's read the author's disclosure. So RJJ and ML discloses that they are inventors. They are inventors on patents relating to blocking fructose metabolism as a means to reduce sugar craving and metabolic syndrome. So these guys have equity in Colorado Research Partners, which is a startup company interested in developing, you know, basically these fructose inhibitors. And there's also some associations here with AstraZeneca. So they obviously have a vested interest here because they have patents relating to blocking fructose metabolism. And this is important, okay? It's important to read the study, and they obviously have a conflict of interest. And I have a medical doctor friend who is also trained in optimal human nutrition, and she has been high carb, raw vegan, high fruit for 9 years. And she has a lot of experience with non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. You know, she sees patients and, you know, she reads the science. So I'm going to insert a little bit from her.
So I've had the privilege of working as a medical doctor now for 15 years. My focus is in holistic health. My specialty is internal medicine, and I've had additional training in nutrition. So I'm drawing from this experience, from this education, and from my personal experience of eating a fruit-based raw vegan diet now for about 8 years. So first thing to say is that eating a lot of fruit in the context of a whole foods, plant-based diet is not a cause for non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. Non-alcoholic fatty liver disease is actually a very common cause of liver disease, especially in the Western world. I have had the unfortunate experience of diagnosing several people with NAFLD as a doctor. None of them were eating a whole foods, plant-based diet. None of them were eating a lot of fruit. Now, a lot of them were eating a lot of animal protein, and actually studies are showing a link with animal protein and an increased risk of NAFLD. Eating lots of fruit, especially whole fruit, is not the same as taking in lots of fructose. And the reason is fruit is way more than fructose. Fruit is packed with antioxidants, phytonutrients that are incredibly helpful for fighting the oxidative stress that is part of the mechanism of action of producing NAFLD. So fruit, whole fruit in its natural form, actually prevents onset of NAFLD if you think about that mechanism of action. Fruit would prevent this problem.
And another thing to mention here is that the author says that the added sugar, current intake of added sugars, that's not just high fructose corn syrup, that's also sucrose as well, table sugar, which breaks down to a molecule of fructose and a molecule of glucose, simple sugars, monosaccharides, which is good, we want that. But it says 15% of overall energy intake in the average Western diet. 15%? Like, why are they focusing on 15% when something like, what, 40% or more of the calories are coming from fat in the Western diet? Why are we focusing on that sugar, that small percentage of these isolated sugars? You know, like, you can see there's a lot of like manipulation of the data and misrepresentation.
How eating large amounts of fructose can lead to non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. It's a response that animals have. But in terms of
Hang on. It's a response that animals have. That's very broad. Different animals process their food in different ways, process sugars in different ways. Right? Might you know that? Huh? Are we the same as carnivores? No, we're not. So you can't just say animals. We're frugivores, right? We are designed to intake high levels of fructose, but obviously not in this isolated form. You know, that's made in a lab. It never would have come in like that. But we are meant to eat high quantities of fruit. So him just saying animals in general is, yeah.
Nikocado, it makes sense why he continued to lose weight as well.
It doesn't make sense.
Alcoholic fatty liver disease, one of the symptoms can be weight loss.
Oh,
that also adds up. And from
this is disastrous.
This paper, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease can lead to other dysfunctions, which can lead to things like dizziness
And now he's like trying to tie it in with like, this is why he was having brain issues. It's like, he was lying. And if he was having brain issues, it's just because he was under eating. And obviously you're gonna feel brain fog. He said that one of his symptoms was brain fog. Yeah, because there's not enough fuel coming in. There's not enough monosaccharides, not enough fructose, glucose. Oh, Mike.
I would also add that fiber is huge on satiation, but if you are just eating fruit, you're not getting those resistant starches that then break down into short-chain fatty acids in your digestive system, which...
Hang on a second. Wow. Fruit is always the best for your microbiome family. They always prefer the fruit fiber, pectin. The microbiome literally break it down into fatty acids that help the immune system. And dates and bananas are actually some of the best foods for this. And I did a video on this, so without me going into too much detail here, watch the video, okay? This is just wrong. So anyway, this is a mega long video, as you can see. And the only reason I make videos this long is because I'm so passionate. I'm so passionate about defending fruit. I'm sick of people misrepresenting it. You know, I want to break it down to like a 10-minute video for you, but I'm too passionate. When I see so much misinformation and fruit being misrepresented, I just have to speak up. I have to give you the facts, because Mike hasn't given you the facts. He's given you lies and manipulation and misrepresentation, and I'm not going to stand by and just let him do that. I've stood by enough and let him do that, so that's over, okay? I had to call him out on this. And when it comes to non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, you saw the author even debunked Mike's own claims. He was debunked by his own study. It said it's not associated. Fruits are not associated with non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, but he wanted it to be because he is biased and he has this agenda against a high fruit diet. A lot of people do, because it gets some views, you know, it gets support, because most people don't want to eat that way. They don't want to eat their, you know, physiologically perfect diet, you know, so they want to find support for it and they want to hate on fruit. And I see that a lot, and it's disappointing, but I will always fight against that, and I will always bring light to the darkness that people present you, you know, the lies and the misinformation. So that's about all I can say. I might put a little bit of a recap here so you can take it away from the video, because there's a lot to take in, I understand that. And so you can just screenshot it, take it away, and forever you will know that it is okay to eat high amounts of fruit, okay? It is okay. You know, you don't have to freak out about the fructose, all right? Because you're not gulping this isolated solution. All right, so that's my video for today. Let us know in the comments what you think, and I will see you next video. Don't forget to go fruit yourself today.
No increase in triglycerides, no increase in cholesterol, no increase in blood pressure or weight or issues with insulin. So that's what the science says.